Hello everyone. Today we are going to start a new medical series. We are focusing on general pathology. Our aim is to make the subject easier and lighter.
In the first series, we are going to have the introduction regarding cell injury, cellular adaptations, and cellular aging. Before going into the details regarding the topic, we have to understand what is the sequence and importance of studying pathology. Regarding the pathology, it is actually everyone is having a concept that it is a difficult subject. But if you study the pathology in a regular fashion, then it is the most easy subject to handle. Here in this slide, I will tell you an incorporation of the various steps of pathology with the evolution of disease. We are basically studying disease and its producing organism in pathology. In this part, every disease will be having a cause. Before going in detail regarding anything, the first thing we have to deal is the etiology or the cause of the disease. The cause may be toxins, infections, immunological abnormalities, genetic abnormalities, both inherited or acquired, nutritional imbalances, trauma. From this cause, the disease may next ascent give rise to the pathogenesis. That is the mechanism of disease. It may be biochemical changes and also structural changes. From this, it enters into the molecular, functional, and morphological abnormalities in the cells and tissues. Simultaneously gives rise to signs and symptoms of disease. So when we are studying pathology regarding a disease, these are the factors that should keep in our mind. It should have an etiological basis, a pathogenesis, and the morphological or functional or molecular studies must be there. And its clinical symptoms and signs are to be noted. This is the step of evolution of disease as well as to make the study of pathology easy.
Cell injury is defined as the effect of a variety of stresses due to etiological agents a cell encounters resulting in changes in its internal and external environment. In general, cells of the body have inbuilt mechanisms to deal with changes in environment to an extent. The cellular response to stress may vary and depends upon the following two variables. That is, host factors, the type of cell and tissue involved, factors pertaining to injurious agent, that is, extent and type of cell injury.
Now, what is cell injury actually? Cell injury means you just consider a cell. Due to some injury, the basic fact that you should understand regarding this topic is that if you have an injury to anything, simultaneously it can either it can be due to a cause. From that cause, it can either end in the total destruction of that one, or it can regain back to position, or it will alter some changes in the function and regain to the back to the normal functionings. This is the basic fact that you must keep in your minds. Cell injury, just consider cell injury in relation to general things. Generally, if you get a hit in your body, automatically what will happen? Simultaneous bruises will be there. Later on, inflammatory changes will occur. Healing will be there. If you consider a diabetic patient, healing will not be promoted. As a complication, it goes for pus and necrosis. So these are the different higher forms. So regarding this, before going to the higher forms, it is having a basic thing. So there comes the importance of cell injury. So we are going to the various forms of responses of cell injury. If we go to the responses of various responses of cell injury, the first thing, increase the functional demand. That means that a cell is having more and more. For example, we are traveling in a car. 5 persons can travel in a car. So what happens if 7 to 8 persons enters in? Everyone will have to adjust. So a method of adaptation occurs. That is the first and foremost response in cell injury. That is, increase the functional demand. The cell may adapt to changes which are expressed morphologically, which then revert back to normal after the stress is removed. That's what I was telling. 8 persons traveling in a car which holds 5 means when 3 persons get out of it, everyone can travel smoothly. That is what is a cellular adaptation.
The various cellular adaptations are atrophy, hypertrophy, hyperplasia, metaplasia, and dysplasia. Atrophy means decrease in size and weight of tissue or an organ.
The examples of atrophy. What is meant by atrophy? Actually, it is nothing but it is the shrinkage. I already told you, if you are traveling in a car, 8 persons entering in means someone has to shrink it. All the persons will be collapsed together. Or in a basket, we are just forcefully arranging the things which is not at all equivalently distributed. So when we are arranging in that fashion, there what happens, there will be a shrinkage occurs or atrophy occurs. In disease condition, if you consider, the examples are mainly decrease the hormonal stimulations. That means if the hormones are decreased the stimulations, for example, hypopituitarism causing atrophy of target cells such as thyroid and adrenal cortex. Stimulating hormones, if it is the pituitary due to hyperpituitarism, due to the atrophy of the this one pituitary, with hypopituitarism can cause atrophy of the target organs such as thyroid and adrenal cortex. The next example is if there is a decreased blood flow to the regarding the decreased blood flow. If cerebral atrophy occurs due to the atherosclerosis of the carotid artery.
Next one is hypertrophy. Hypertrophy means increase in cell size.
Hypertrophy means increase is in cell size. So what happens is that due to a stimuli, due to some sort of functional demand, it enlarged out. For example, if a person is for weight gaining, he is doing more and more exercises, he is regulating the diet, simultaneously skeletal muscle hypertrophy can occur. And this is actually a physiological hypertrophy. And if you consider in a pathological case, if one kidney is being damaged, simultaneously what will happen? The next kidney which is remaining will take over the function of the first kidney and hypertrophy of the other kidney will occur. Then in hypertension, what happens? Left ventricular hypertrophy occurs. This is actually a compensatory mechanism to adopt in order to maintain the functioning.
Next one is hyperplasia. Hyperplasia means increase in the number of cells.
The increase in, especially in conditions of BPH, where the cells will get increased. So it will produces this a disease condition which is known as benign prostatic hypertrophy. Sorry, hyperplasia.
Next is metaplasia. That means replacement of one fully differentiated cell type by another.
If you consider in chronic gastritis, what will happen? due to the excessive attacks of gastritis can simultaneously brings about changes in the cells of the stomach. It so pivotal the thing is that it can cause out cancer in the pylorus or andrum. Then it becomes metaplasia. And metaplasia is sometimes reversible if the irritant is removed. Because if you are treating the chronic gastritis, we are just maintaining the diet. Automatically, we can prevent metaplasia. Then another instance is that a person is smoking for long. Automatically, to adjust with that, sorry, it's not smoking. A person is chewing for many days, and to adjust with that, what he does is that he will be continuously irritating the mucous membrane over there in the cheek. So the cheek will, what the cheek will do is that it will just go for the leukoplakia, which is a precancerous condition, and later on it can go for CA cheek.
Finally, dysplasia. That means disordered cell growth.
In disordered cell growth, what happens is that it is actually a potential precursor to cancer of the irritant is not removed. If the irritant is not removed, automatically it can develop to a cancer. That, for example, solar damage of the skin causing squamous dysplasia, human papillomavirus type 16 and 18 causing squamous dysplasia of the cervix.
In cell injury, when the stress is mild to moderate, the injured cell may recover. That is, repair and healing will take place. This kind of cell injury is called reversible cell injury.
In case of reversible cell injury, what are the things? We will study that one detail in the next part. But we will have to have what are the slight changes that is occurring in reversible cell injury. This you can, in the picture, you can see aggregation of the intramembranous particles occurs, endoplasmic reticular swelling occurs, dispersion of the ribosomes, mitochondrial swelling occurs, small densities are arising, then autophagy by lysosomes, clumping of nuclear chromatin, generalized swelling, blebs occurs. These are the events which is happening in the reversible cell injury.
If the stress is persistent and of severe form, the cell injury may cause cell death, that is apoptosis or necrosis. This is called as irreversible cell injury.
In case of irreversible cell injury, the stress is persisting. As the stress is persisting, automatically damage is inevitable. So it can bring about further damage and damage. Last thing is that the ultimate fate, it's cell death. It may be apoptosis or necrosis. The features that occurs in a cell death are, one is we had seen aggregation of intramembranous particles that will be changing to myelin figures, lysis of the endoplasmic reticulum occurs, defects in the cell membrane occurs, large densities will occur, mitochondrial swelling will be there, rupture of lysosomes and autolysis will be there, then pycnosis or karyolysis or karyohexesis will be there. Simultaneously, irreversible cell injury, either it can go for apoptosis or necrosis.
Normal cell is capable of handling physiological demands and maintains a steady state called homeostasis. Cellular response to injury depends on type of injury, duration of injury, and severity of injury.
The types of cell responses to stimuli by injury are, depending upon, this is, we are going into the detail regarding the cellular responses. Here you can see the nature of the stimulus and the action, what happens. If there is altered physiological stimuli, some non-lethal type cellular adaptations will occur. That we had already told: hypertrophy, hyperplasia, atrophy, metaplasia. If the altered physiological stimuli is non-lethal. That means that it will not produce big harm or big damage. Then it can be, there will be cellular adaptations will occur. Cellular adaptations can be bring about further complications. That is a different thing. But here up to here, due to the altered physiological functions, there the first instance what happens is that cellular adaptations will be produced, such as hypertrophy, hyperplasia, atrophy, metaplasia. Okay, then to the next nature of stimulus is, one is oxygen deprivation, physical agents, chemical agents, infectious agents. If it is of acute, mild and transient, oxygen deprivation, physical agents, chemical agents, infectious agents, if any one of this is the nature of stimulus for the cell injury, then if it is in acute form, mild and transient, then reversible cell injury will occur. That means cellular swelling and fatty changes will be only there, and later on regain to normal if it is in acute, mild and transient state. But if the oxygen deprivation or the hypoxia or physical agents, chemical agents and infectious agents are severe and progressive, then it can go for irreversible cell injury and cell death. That means necrosis and apoptosis will be followed. So what you have to know is that depending what is the agent, what is the host, which is the infectious organism, depending upon the severity and mode of attack, the cell injury response will be differing. If it is acute or mild in nature, reversible cell injury. If it is severe and progressive, irreversible cell injury. The next nature of stimulus is genetic or acquired metabolic defects, chronic injury, etc. So what happened in such thing is that intracellular accumulations will be there, such as glycogen, proteins, pigments, etc. will be there. And if it is chronic injury, genetic and acquired can bring about. The next thing is pathological calcifications such as dystrophic or metastatic calcifications may occur. Next nature of stimulus is cumulative long sublethal injury, which will be cellular aging. That means that premature senility or senile changes, all these will come under cumulative long sublethal injuries. Because whatever be the thing, transiently at the end, the person has to die. So a senile person automatically can bring about cellular changes, that all things will be responding regarding the cellular aging. This is the major things which you have to understand regarding the types of cellular responses, stimuli and injury. To be precise, for your knowledge, I'm just simplified again. Normal cell, if there is an altered function demand is there, it will go for adaptations. That is atrophy, hypertrophy, hyperplasia, metaplasia, dysplasia. If the stress is removed, normal cell will be restored. And if it is from mild to moderate stress, reversible cell injury. What are the things that happens are degenerations, subcellular alterations, intracellular accumulations will be there. And if this stress is removed, it will bring about repair and healing. And the next response is severe persistent stress, irreversible cell injury, cell death, apoptosis and necrosis.
Consequences of cell injury depends on type of cell involved, metabolic state of the cell's ability to adapt. In some organs, both hypertrophy and hyperplasia may coexist. Example, uterus during pregnancy. Hypertrophied organ has no new cells but has cells with increased size.
Okay, now we will go with the normal cells. Homeostasis occurs, stress occurs, adaptation, stress withdrawal, again normal cell. Here again, If inability to adapt, if the alt adaptation is inability to adapt to stress, stress is remaining again, persisting again, then it will go for cell injury. In the cell injury will be either, if it is mild and transient injury, it will go for reversible cell injury again to normal cell. If it is a severe and progressive irreversible cell injury, cell death, that is necrosis and apoptosis. So these are the different stages of cellular response to stress and injury. That means, again I want to tell, repeating it: normal cell, stress present, adaptation. If the stress is withdrawn, normal cell will be regained. If it is the stress is not withdrawn, inability to adapt, then cell injury will occur. If the cell injury is persisting, then automatically, if it is a mild and transient injury, it will go for reversible injury, cellular swelling and fatty changes, and normal cell will be regained. If it is severe, progressive injury, irreversible cell injury, which will go for necrosis or apoptosis.
Etiology of cell injury. It may be either acquired cause or genetic cause. Acquired causes include hypoxia and ischemia, physical agents, chemical agents and drugs, microbial agents, immunological agents, nutritional derangements, aging, psychogenic diseases, iatrogenic factors, and finally idiopathic diseases.
These are the causes of cell injury. So what happens is that due to any one of this cause, the cell injury may progress. Remaining, already we had told you regarding the responses and other things. Now the next part is reversible cell injury, that we will deal in the next part. Thank you.
If you like our video, don't forget to like, share and subscribe.